I'm Stephen Chu. I'm a professor of psychology here at Stanford University in Birmingham, Alabama. I'm a cognitive psychologist who studies teaching and learning. This is the first in a series of videos on the cognitive principles of effective teaching. In this series, I hope to show what the cognitive factors are that teachers need to be aware of in order to teach effectively. I'm not promoting any single best teaching method that everyone should use. My basic argument is this. To be effective, any teaching method has to be grounded in the cognitive architecture of the human mind. It must take advantage of what the mind is good at doing and cope with its limitations. If a teaching method fails to mesh with the limitations and properties of the human mind, then it will fail, no matter how well-intentioned or how well executed. Cognitive psychologists do not know the exact conditions which make learning occur, but we do know that there are factors and strategies which make it more likely or less likely to happen. All teachers have a mental theory of how people learn that guides their choice and their implementation of their pedagogy. If their theory is accurate, they will be effective teachers. If the theory is simplistic, inaccurate, or incomplete, it'll undermine their teaching effectiveness. Cognitive research can inform teaching practice in important ways. This first video explains how the beliefs that teachers hold can influence their teaching effectiveness. One of the most fundamental beliefs that teachers hold is their primary goal for teaching. There seem to be two basic views on this. In the information-driven view, the goal of teaching is seen as presenting information that students are responsible for learning. In this view, the role of the teacher is to provide accurate and up-to-date information and to present it in an interesting, clear, and even inspiring manner. Teaching is straightforward. It doesn't require any sort of special training beyond knowledge of your field. In the learning-driven view, the primary goal of teaching is to develop a deep and connected understanding on the part of the students. This means that teaching is more than presenting information and being inspiring. Success is gauged by student learning. No matter how interesting or engagingly information is presented, if the students don't learn, then teaching is not successful. Learning becomes a shared responsibility between the student and the teacher. In this view, teaching becomes deeply challenging. It requires more than just presenting information. It requires a knowledge of how people learn. Teaching skill takes years to develop and is never completely mastered. I believe that cognitive research supports the latter view, that teaching success is measured by student learning. Teachers have a huge impact on whether students learn, what they learn, and how likely they are to use it, and that impact can be positive or negative. Nira Hativa has conducted research on teachers who are ineffective in getting their students to learn. These teachers are not lazy or indifferent, they simply have beliefs that undermine their effectiveness. Here are some beliefs that are related to ineffective learning. The first two beliefs are directly related to the information-driven view that teaching is about presenting information. The third belief, that making learning easy is watering down the material, comes from the assumption that the more students struggle, the more they'll learn. We'll see later that that's not true. Making information easier to learn is not the same as spoon-feeding students, and there's a difference between making it as easy as possible for students to learn and having them struggle needlessly. For the belief that students will come to appreciate your teaching later, the research is clear that emotional responses to teachers are stable over time. In other words, if you think of a class you absolutely despised back when you were younger, chances are you still despise it now. The last two beliefs are related to mental mindset and the distinction that Carol Dweck makes between a fixed versus growth mindset. A growth mindset is the idea that our ability improves as a direct result of the effort we put into it. In a fixed mindset, a person believes that ability is inborn and unchangeable. One is either naturally good at a skill or bad. For students, a growth mindset is superior for learning to a fixed mindset, and the same is true for teachers. Teachers who approach teaching skill with a growth mindset are generally more effective than teachers who believe that teaching skill is inborn and not made through effort. I believe that understanding the cognitive principles of teaching is important for effective teaching and for teaching practice to advance. Without a cognitive framework, teaching becomes fad-driven. Fads promise to revolutionize teaching, they're popular for a while, then they fade away without a trace. In the next video, we'll begin exploring the cognitive factors that influence teaching.